Today, we're diving into something huge, India's union budget. Now, I know what you might be thinking, numbers, finance, but trust me, this is way more than just a spreadsheet. It is literally the country's game plan for the entire year. So let's get right into it.
First things first, let's just try to wrap our heads around the scale here. The total planned spending for the year is, well, it's over 53 trillion rupees. It's a number so big, it almost loses meaning. I mean, think about it. It's almost unimaginable.
So that leads to the big question, right? How on earth does a country even begin to manage a budget this massive? The best way to think about it really is like your own household budget. You've got money coming in, you've got money going out. It's just on a scale for, over 1 billion people.
At its heart, that's what the union budget is. It's the government's official plan for the year. It lays out every single rupee it expects to earn and every single rupee it plans to spend. It's the whole shebang.
But, this isn't just some boring accounting exercise. No way. This document is a roadmap. It literally signals the government's priorities and shows us exactly where they're trying to steer the Indian economy for the next 12 months.
So, to really understand this massive plan, we have to start with the most fundamental question of all. Where does all this money actually come from? Let's follow the trail and see where it leads.
Okay, this chart makes it super simple. It breaks down where every single rupee comes from. And as you can see, it's not just one thing. It's a whole mix of different sources, from the taxes we all pay to, well, other things that fills up the government's wallet.
But I want you to look closely at the biggest slice of that pie. A full 24 paise of every rupee comes from borrowings and other liabilities. That means almost a quarter of the entire budget is funded by going into debt. Now tuck that little fact away, because it's going to be really important in a few minutes.
Right after borrowing, we get to the real engine of the government's income, taxes. You've got income tax paid by individuals like you and me, corporation tax paid by companies, and of course, GST. You put those three together, and that's where the vast majority of the government's own earnings come from.
Okay, so we've seen how the government fills its pockets. Now for the other side of the coin, and maybe the more interesting part. Where does all that cash actually go? This is where you see a nation's priorities laid bare.
And just like with the income, this chart shows us where every single rupee gets spent. You can see these huge chunks going out to the states, a massive amount just to pay interest on loans, all those big national programs, and of course, defense. It's a huge balancing act, for sure.
Let's just zoom in on the top two for a second. The single biggest expense, 22 paise of every rupee, is the money that goes right back to the states so they can fund their own local projects. But look at what's right behind it. Interest payments. At 20 paise, this is the cost of all that borrowing we saw earlier. A full fifth of the entire budget is gone before you do anything new, just paying for the debt of the past.
So you've got money coming in, you've got money going out. The obvious next question is, does it all add up? Because that gap, the difference between what the government earns and what it spends, tells a really important story about the country's financial health.
Now, this gap has a fancy name, the fiscal deficit. But honestly, forget the jargon for a second. All it really means is the amount of money the government has to borrow this year just to make ends meet. It's that simple. It's the annual shortfall.
And here it is, the headline number for this budget. The fiscal deficit is projected to be 4.3% of India's GDP. This one little percentage is probably one of the most closely watched numbers by economists and investors all over the world.
But, a single number never tells the whole story. The real story is the trend. And as you can see, the deficit is actually projected to shrink over time. This downward path, this is what they call fiscal consolidation. It's basically a signal that the government is trying to tighten its belt and borrow a little bit less each year.
Okay, I get it. All these trillions and percentages can feel super abstract. So let's bring it all back down to earth. What does this all actually mean for people in their day-to-day lives? Where does this money really go?
Just take a look at these numbers. These are the allocations for some of the government's biggest flagship programs. We're talking over 67,000 crore rupees to bring clean drinking water to rural homes, almost 55,000 crore for building houses in villages, tens of thousands of crores for schools and for direct cash support to farmers. This is where the budget stops being numbers and starts being real life.
And honestly, that's just a tiny snapshot. But it shows you exactly how this massive budget document actually translates into real development on the ground, funding everything from a water tap in a village to a textbook in a classroom.
So when you look at all the numbers, what we're left with is this fundamental challenge at the heart of the budget. It is a constant tightrope walk. On one side, you have this desperate need to invest and spend to fuel growth for the future. But on the other, you have the heavy responsibility of managing the debt you've already piled up. Every single rupee spent is a choice. And that really leaves us with the big question, what do you think is the right balance?